Have you ever wondered if you've had a spiritual emergency or even wondered what spiritual emergency means? Well, I'm going to talk to you about a personal experience I had where I explain how it happened, what it felt like, and how I moved out of it. This is Eddie from A Mindful Emergence, where Margaret and I blend ancient wisdom traditions and modern science through mindfulness, movement, and breathing practices to help people get unstuck and access their own inner resources for their own spiritual transformation. So, back 20 years ago in 1992, my personal meditation practice was very much involved with the Tibetan practice, the Vajrayana. And in 1992, I spent several weeks in Asia on a spiritual pilgrimage. In that trip, I spent a brief period of time in Thailand. Then I was in Nepal for several weeks. And then I was in Bhutan and also India. Now, during this trip, I had a number of remarkable experiences. Part of the pilgrimage was that when I was in Bhutan, I was with a group where we visited a number of holy sites and monasteries and sat and studied and practiced with these high lamas, these spiritual teachers. One of the places that I went was a place called Taksan, which is also known as Tiger's Lair. And here's a photograph that I took. This is perched up on the side of a mountain at about 13,000 feet. And this is just one of the buildings. What's really remarkable about this, besides the fact that we hiked up there, was that monks have been doing 3-year, 3-month retreats there for 1,000 years. So you can imagine the energetic field that was there as we were doing practice. And we went to several other sites. Also, when I was down in India, I happened to be in Calcutta. And while in Calcutta, I went out for a walk and I ended up going to Mother House where I met Mother Teresa. This is a photograph that I took, one of several, and I ended up having an opportunity to talk with her. And even though I am a what you might call a recovering Catholic or a lapsed Catholic, um, Mother Teresa was more than just about Catholicism. And in this experience I had, it was very profound having this conversation and being in her energy field. So imagine spending weeks and weeks and weeks doing these kinds of things. And when I came back to the States, I was living in Phoenix at the time, and I found out that I basically couldn't really function very well. First of all, I was very noise sensitive. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't listen to music. And I love music. I had a massive music collection. None of it was of interest to me. I had difficulty being out in public. Sometimes I struggled making decisions. And I actually wondered if I was losing my mind. So, what is spiritual emergency? Another way of looking at it is that we go through a spiritually transformative experience and we have difficulty making meaning of it and integrating it. And that integration happens in the body, in the nervous system, which of course includes the brain. And these kinds of spiritual emergencies can happen as a result of many things. In this case, it was spending all this time doing all this practice, meeting these high powered individuals, being in this field of energy for a sustained period of time. One time I was on a meditation retreat near here in Asheville, and it was a deep concentration practice for 10 days. Second to last day, one of the women that was there had what appeared to be a psychotic break. I mean, that was the behavior, was looked like that. But in my opinion, she was going through a spiritually transformative experience and having difficulty integrating it. And it had really been disruptive to her ability to function. She had to leave the retreat right away and get help. Also, people can have these kinds of experiences through near death experiences, Kundalini awakening. There's a number of different ways they can occur. If you want to know more about spiritual emergence and spiritual emergency, the best book to read is The Stormy Search for Self, which was written by Stan and Christina Grof decades ago. And the book really breaks down the difference between emergence and emergency, and it talks about Christina's experiences and really digs in deeply. And it's really powerful, important work. But when we don't understand what we're going through, it can be terrifying and really difficult. So when I came back, I talked to you a little bit about this experience, and I really didn't know what to do. I wished that I had been able to talk to somebody who was trained in working with this, as Margaret and I are, and as many others are. Margaret and I are actually going through the process of, of getting additional training. We've done this work for about 6 or 7 years, but we're actually going to be certified as mental health providers, working with people going through spiritually transformative experiences and wanting to integrate them. How did I get out of it? Well, the reality of it is, it felt like a very deep existential crisis. Life didn't really have a sense of meaning for me. I kept going through this thought of, like, what's the point? Life doesn't have meaning. How do I function? How can I actually make a difference in the world as well as just get by? And here's what happened. Oh, and by the way, another thing is, I couldn't sit and do sitting practice. I couldn't sit down and do meditation. The only way I could do meditation was movement. And I was doing some shaking and dancing practices and things like that. And that seemed to help a little bit. So one day I went to a grocery store and I was standing in line, and there was a woman in front of me who was getting her goods rung up and bagged up and everything, and she was kind of impatient with the cashier, a bit abrupt, rude, in my opinion. So she got her stuff and she left, and I went up and I looked at this young woman. She had a name tag on, and I don't remember her name, but let's say it was Jennifer, right? So she kind of had her head down. You could tell she was having a hard time. Probably wasn't just that experience with that one rude customer. It was probably, who knows what was going on, but she was struggling. So she kind of said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm doing fine, but how are you, Jennifer? How are you doing today?" And she looked up at me, and there was this little, I get emotional every time I tell this story, and I've told it many times. There was this sort of little tiny smile, and she nodded her head and she said, "You know, I'm okay now. I'm okay." What happened? She was recognized as being a person, not just some figure, some object. It was like her humanity was recognized. And we just looked in each other's eyes and we kind of nodded our heads. And she rung up my stuff and she said, "I hope you have a good day. Thanks." And I said the same, and I moved on. And I walked out of that store and I thought to myself, that's it. That's the point, to reach out and connect with someone in a meaningful way. And I can make a difference just by a simple gesture of doing that. And somehow that created a shift. It didn't happen instantly, but as I continued to try to do the practices to get in my body and ground and move, this energy that was stuck, things started opening up and shifting and changing, and I was able to return back to being a functional person. My son was living with me at the time. I was able to show up and be more present for him and more present in my work and everything I was doing. So that was something that I was able to move out of through that experience. And despite the fact that I wasn't working with anyone trained, but there are people now trained. If you want more information, I put a link in here how you can find out more about this. I've got videos, other videos on the YouTube channel about spiritual emergence and spiritual emergency. And I invite you to perhaps check out this book if you're interested. And you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to share other resources with you. So I hope this was interesting and helpful. and maybe even inspiring. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and you want more of this content, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll hear about future videos that we're putting on. Of course, we love comments. Give us a thumbs up if this video was helpful to you. Thanks very much for watching.